The story starts at a doctor's office. General Kadir, from the Pakistani National Forces, confirms his suspicions that he has gotten terminal cancer. What's more, the doctor has given him 3 measly years left to live. All of a sudden, a piece of news interrupts their conversation. News that the Indian government has revoked Article 370, a law which gives Jammu and Kashmir a special status. Hearing thinks of this as a declaration of his last 3 years alive to bring India to its knees. Called Outfit X. He commands him to destroy India, no matter what the cost, and has passed since this fateful day. Rafe, one of Jim's men, is setting up a purchase for 2 Sabre missiles when he hears that someone has come looking for him. As such, he makes his way to this man, who is currently being brutally beaten after being tied up. However, Rafe learns that this long-haired man is Pathaan, who, as per his knowledge, was considered dead. Seeing him, Rafe becomes distraught and pulls out his gun to kill this man. But Pathaan manages to break free from his constraints and begins pounding down all his enemies. This ends up in an epic killing spree, and Pathaan, after equipping himself with various guns and knives, kills off most of the outlaws present. Capturing Rafe alive, he then steals a helicopter from his opponents and makes his escape. Meanwhile, at the Indian intelligence agency, they get a hit on Rubai, a Pakistani agent who is connected to Outfit X. The senior officer, Nandini Grewal, hastily makes her way, along with her assistant, over to her, where she gives some insight about Pathaan and his past. According to her, Pathaan used to be a former RAW agent, but 2 years ago, due to an incident in Myanmar, was forced to retire. Nonetheless, he decided to create a unit called Joint Operations and Covert Research Unit. In this team, he selects ex-RAW agents who retired due to injuries and trauma in the past but still have a burning passion for their country and want to wholeheartedly serve their nation. Even Nandini agrees to join his group as the head, and soon, they begin their research and operations. One day, this JOCR unit gets some info that Outfit X is planning to kill the President of India in the upcoming conference being held in Dubai. After convincing their superior, Colonel Sunil Luthra, they make their way over to Dubai to stop this evil group from bringing their goals to fruition. Regardless, once they reach there, they fail to find anything of note. Everything seems to be normal, which causes some suspicions. At the last possible time, Pathaan suddenly realizes that his conclusion was wrong. The president wasn't Outfit X's real target, and it was a ruse to mislead them. Rather, it was the 2 scientists of India who were also taking part in the conference. On the flip side, Jim's plan has worked splendidly, as the security around the scientists is lax thanks to more security being assigned to the president. He is able to attack the scientists' convoy and single-handedly kidnaps them both with ease. Pathaan, understanding the flaw in his thought process, chases after Jim but ultimately crashes into his foe and injures himself. There, Jim makes a short introduction to the bruised hero, revealing that he too used to be a RAW agent in the past. However, he claims that he was considered dead up until this point by the authorities. After saying his piece, Jim then walks away, setting the car his foe was in ablaze. But even this isn't enough to stop the unstoppable soldier, who manages to escape the burning car and calls for a helicopter in order to continue his pursuit. He gets into close-quarter combat with Jim, managing to save only one of the kidnappees while Jim makes his escape with the other scientist. Back at the agency, Luthra explains why Jim left RAW. According to him, Jim was considered dead when he, along with his wife and unborn child, was kidnapped by Somali terrorists. The Indian government, refusing to negotiate with terrorists and paying an extraordinary ransom in exchange for them, let Jim's family die right in front of his eyes. Moreover, Jim's body was never found, and so he was presumed dead. But in actuality, he somehow survived this ordeal and faked his death, beginning to plan his revenge against India for how it had left his family to die. Hearing this tale, Pathaan condemns Luthra, blaming him for forsaking Jim and turning him into the monster he is. Despite this, the JOCR unit continues its investigation, learning of the code word Rakbij. Moreover, they learn that the agents which died in Dubai have gotten their money stolen and transferred to the account of Rubina Mohsin, a Pakistani doctor who is currently residing in Spain. Consequently, he heads after her and gets bewitched by her beauty upon first sight. However, this is all a part of Jim's ploy to capture Pathaan. There, he also learns that Rubina, aka Rubai, is an ex-ISI agent. Moreover, Jim offers him a position in his group, but he, of course, refuses. As such, Jim orders his men to kill him and then begins to depart from this place. But Rubai has something else in her mind and, all of a sudden, starts attacking her teammates, saving Pathaan and fleeing with him. She claims that she was acting undercover and her objective will sooner be fulfilled if she teams with Pathaan instead. Her objective is the Rakbij, an unknown object with immense power which is currently located in Moscow. Stating that Jim is also after it, the duo has 7 days to get their hands on it or else. And so, they both make their way to Moscow. The target is at the Waskwich Tower, on the 92nd floor, where an impenetrable vault is located. Pathaan concludes that the Rakbij must be there, if anywhere. And so, Pathaan crafts up a plan to force his way inside this impregnable vault and steal the Rakbij for himself. With the aid of his new partner, he carries out the preparations for the plan and eventually, the fated day arrives. On the appointed day, they begin their mission, stealing the keys to the vault and breaking into the Waskwich Tower, coming ever so close to death in the process. Regardless, they manage to enter and begin to open the vault. As Pathaan unlocks the safe and retrieves the Rakbij, seen to be a green potion inside of a vial, Rubai shows her true colors and betrays him after getting her hands on it. It is revealed that Rubai was in cahoots with Jim along, pretending to work with Pathaan to make Jim take possession of the Rakbij. Stranded alone, without any hope of incoming support, he ultimately gets captured by the Russians, who begin torturing Pathaan to learn the whereabouts of the Rakbij. But the hero keeps his mouth shut, not knowing anything, and doesn't give them any info, despite the wounds he incurred for defying them. Soon, Nandini is brought to see her subordinate, but she denies all association with him and claims that Pathaan went rogue. In addition, she states that she cares not for him or his life. Resultantly, he is sent to a maximum security prison via train, where the other convicts are handed weapons and encouraged to kill him. But even this isn't enough to end the legendary Raw agent, who breaks free from his shackles in one swift motion and proceeds to beat the living daylights out of his foes. Eventually, he begins to slow down and the convicts use their numerical advantage in order to bring him to the ground. But all of a sudden, a thud is heard on top of the train. In a twist of events, Pathaan sees the image of Avinash Tiger Singh Rathore, who is there to rescue Pathaan. With his arrival, the duo begin to maul down countless men, both inmates and police officers alike. They even take down a helicopter pursuing them and manage to survive this incident by the skin of their teeth. Back in the present, Nandini eventually reaches her destination but finds that Rafe is present there, out of commission and tied up. Furthermore, Pathaan is right behind her, pointing a gun towards her head. However, it is revealed that Nandini didn't forsake Pathaan, rather she was the one who sent Tiger to save him. There, Pathaan also reveals that Jim has bought 2 missiles whereas Nandini reveals Rubai's current location to be in Paris. Immediately, he heads over to meet with her and encounters her in the streets. But he also realizes that Rubai intentionally leaked her location, hoping Pathaan would come to her. There, she tells the real identity of the Rakbij, stating it to be a mutated and highly contagious smallpox virus crafted by Dr. Sahani, the scientist Jim kidnapped in Dubai 2 years ago, and claims that General Kadir is the one responsible behind this entire mess. She also expresses how guilty she feels for betraying Pathaan, not knowing that her country would be planning such an underhanded and evil attack. Moreover, she emphasizes how contagious and deadly this new virus is and wants to partner up with him once again to stop these evildoers. Hesitant, he still agrees to join hands with her as he sees no other way to avoid this catastrophe. With this interaction, Pathaan returns to his special unit, the JOCR, and explains the current situation to his team and superiors. Hearing the plan, Nandini is skeptical of Rubai, second-guessing her soldiers' eagerness to work with Rubai once again. Colonel Luthra even goes as far as to tell him to use aerial weapons to destroy Jim's factory, blowing up the building, men and the virus all in one go, but Pathaan refutes this idea, claiming that if somehow the virus doesn't get destroyed, or much worse spreads in the process, the outcome would be disastrous. And so, this insane idea of working together with Rubai once again becomes the only possible way to save this world from this deadly disease, and the group is forced to undergo the mission. And just like that, the day of the mission arrives in a blink. Rubai meets with Jim at the factory and they meet up with Dr. Sahani together. On the other hand, Pathaan, alongside his JOCR unit, breaks into the factory. Their arrival causes alarms to go off and Rubai head out to see what's up, knowing full well what is happening, and disarms then defeats the men watching the cameras. While Jim goes to confront the threat head-on, Rubai decides to steal the 2 orbs which contain the mutated virus. Nonetheless, Jim realizes Rubai's plot and gets in her way. Killing Dr. Sahani, he takes control of both the orbs and makes a break for them. Riding a motorbike on this snowy mountain, he quickly makes his descent to the bottom, but Pathaan is right on his tail. While the latter chases the former, an epic battle ensues which leads to Jim losing possession of the orbs, which go flying on top of a frozen lake. But, thanks to the intervention of an armored vehicle, Jim gets his hand on one of them while Ruby uses her expert ice skating abilities to get her hands on the other. Furthermore, Pathaan soon continues his chase after defeating the vehicle, but is forced to stop his pursuit when Jim throws Ruby underneath the ice, leaving her to die. Deciding to prioritize and save Ruby rather than capture his sworn enemy, he takes a plunge into the freezing water, rescuing her and taking control of the orb. And so, he makes his way back to Jim's lab with Ruby, where Luthra and Nandini are waiting for them. There, Luthra uses his seniority to get his hands on the virus. What's more, he then arrests Ruby, claiming that she has some hidden intentions and that they will use her to know more about Jim and his plan. Despite Pathaan's disagreeing, he has no other choice than to comply with the order of his superiors, and Ruby is sent for interrogation, where she denies any and all knowledge of Jim and his plans. On the other hand, the orb containing the virus is brought to the Indian Institute of Contagious Diseases, or 400 for short, to develop a vaccine. There, Dr. Farooqui, the other scientist along with Sahani at the Dubai conference, examines the orbs, learning that it contains 3 layers. He calls out to Nandini, who watches him demonstrate his finding. However, she is shocked to learn that the orb contains nothing but water. All of a sudden, darkness engulfs the lab, revealing that the lab's mainframe has been hacked. What's more, Jim then calls them. Nandini, perplexed, questions his actions, but Jim has a grin on his face. He explains that he created this orb in a very special way. According to him, the first layer is completely empty while the second layer contains an invisible corrosive acidic gas. Moreover, the third layer had the actual virus itself. As per his plan, the acidic gas has allowed the virus to penetrate the researchers' hazmat suits, allowing the virus to invade the bodies of all of the people present at the lab. After saying his piece, Jim disconnects from the call and the lab emerges into pure chaos. Nandini, thinking this to be the best possible way to avoid the spread of this virus, orders for the lab to be locked down. Pathaan and Luthra hurry to the location and learn that there is no way to save the infected people. But Nandini has a plan to sacrifice the scientists in order to prevent the outburst of this virus. She discards her hazmat suit and takes her own life in an attempt to stop the spread of this virus. Soon after, the entire lab also exploded, using a controlled blast to eliminate any chances of further causalities. Not long after, Jim calls the Indian government once again, giving them an ultimatum. He tells them to remove all soldiers from Kashmir within 24 hours or else the second orb will be unleashed. Hearing this, Pathaan interrogates Rafe, brutally beating him. Moreover, he threatens his family, finally learning that the missile, from which the virus will be sent out, is located in Afghanistan. Learning this bit of info, he immediately then heads over to Ruby, who is being waterboarded, and saves her. They make their way to Afghanistan, following Rafe's tip. Meanwhile, Jim meets with General Kadir inside his hideout. With the time for havoc nearing, Kadir makes his payment to Jim but suddenly gets bad news. He learns that in a remote village in Afghanistan, a sudden outburst of a virus has claimed the lives of many individuals. The symptoms are similar to the ones of Rakbij, making Kadir angry at what is going on. He refuses to pay in this scenario, but Jim makes him apologize, threatening Pakistan. Regardless, he orders his men to find out what is happening, but it is all revealed to be the JOCR's trap. And so, they enable themselves to sneak into the base, suddenly confronting Jim and Kadir with guns pointed at their heads. Acting as a decoy, Jim distracts Pathaan and Ruby while Kadir launches the missile discreetly. This causes a commotion, allowing Jim to escape using this chance. As a gunfight ensues, Ruby kills Kadir once and for all and begins to deactivate the missile. However, she learns that this is all a ruse. The real Rakbij is not inside the missile. Rather, it is located in a passenger plane headed towards Delhi. Moreover, Jim has the denotation device and immediately informs Pathaan and Luthra of this. Luthra calls up the air traffic control and stops the plane from landing. On the other hand, Pathaan himself is fighting Jim, who came back for round 2 after equipping a jetpack. Fighting fire with fire, he too gets his hands on one and they begin an epic air fight. Ultimately, he manages to catch his foe off guard and they both crash into a cabin. But this doesn't stop them and they continue to brutally beat each other. Eventually, Jim stabs Pathaan but has the detonator stolen for him and his opponent immediately deactivates the Rakbij. Furthermore, their crash earlier broke the cabin's foundation and it begins to fall off the cliff. Jim falls down, hanging on from a mere plank of wood. Just then, Pathaan comes up to him and takes away his Vir Puraskar, a bravery award presented for acts of gallantry on the battlefield. Deeming Jim to be unfit for this award, he then stomps down on the plank, sending Jim to his death. With this ordeal has been resolved and India continues its peaceful days thanks to the unstoppable soldier Pathaan. After the battle has concluded, Pathaan finally decides to quit this line of work, but Luthra suddenly intervenes, claiming that the war is still far from over. Moreover, his skill set is still required, and so Luthra offers him the position of the head of the JOCR. In a mid-credits scene, a glimpse into Pathaan and Tiger's life is shown. After their battle in the Russian convict train, both of them are seen sitting on the ledge of the train tracks. There, they discuss how they have gotten old and how they wish they could retire. But who will replace them? As they ponder and reject agents which could replace them, they decide to keep going at it until they can, not wanting the young ones to face the dangers they face.